And I'll do as per tradition, for those of you that don't know who Bongo Hive is and what we do, we had presented a challenge to our panelists to spread the word as wide in their networks as they could. So some of you may not have heard about Bongo Hive before, or what we do, why we exist. So Bongo Hive is Zambia's first technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship hub. And over the past 9 years, we have implemented programs meant to support entrepreneurs from idea stage all the way to investment. We work with corporate institutions, we work with individuals that are thinking, look, I have a burning desire to change the world and I have no idea how to go about that. We are here to create that support within the ecosystem. And so over the past year, we've been talking a lot about the changes that have come as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it has changed our lives. It has changed how we do business. And we have female founders here today. And I am particularly excited about this conversation is because we're zoning in and looking at female founders in the new norm. How do you do business? What happens next? Where are we going? So it might get into a bit of an existential conversation. So Evelyn, Rose, Sarah, I hope you're ready for that. And today we want to talk about what are the stories, right? You're digging into your stories, your successes, your challenges, and your inspirations. And I think coming out of this pandemic, we want to go forward thinking about what are the opportunities that exist. And Rose, you have touched on the fact that you're here as cheerleaders for young people that want to start businesses. And I saw in the chat that Annie mentioned that she's not young anymore, although she started when she was young and she's still trying to get started. So you're here for every entrepreneur really that is wanting to build during this time. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to share who you are, but just for everybody to know exactly who we have in the room. So when you hear everybody talking about hardworking, brilliant, amazing women, who are these women? And so on the panel today, we have Evelyn Chilomo Kaingu, who is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Lupia. We have Rose CBC, who is the founder of Style with Roses and is the CEO of CBC Television Zambia. We also have Sarah Drowater, who's the co-founder of Best of Zambia. And so I'm going to ask if you can cram your long bios into about a minute each and tell us who are you. And I'll start with you, Sarah. Let us know, who are you?
Wow, what a question. Okay, I'm Sarah. I am, as you mentioned, co-founder of thebestofzambia.com. I live with one foot in the UK and one foot in Zambia. I am half Zambian, half English. Many people won't know that I was born in Zambia in October in Monze. So I understand the heat that you're feeling. I went to school, grew up in Zambia and moved to the UK in 99. And pretty much all my working life has been here, which has pros and cons into learning to adapt what I know from here and applying it to running a business in Zambia. But on top of running thebestofzambia.com, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm just, a normal person, but I have huge passions and really, really big dreams and a deep love for my home country, Zambia. Is that about a minute? Any questions?
It is.
Yeah. I need a timer because I can talk.
Thank you, Sarah. Evelyn?
So my name is Evelyn Kaingu, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lupia. And so we are a fintech startup that provides microloans to individuals, small businesses, and particularly women entrepreneurs. So my team won't let me not sell the platform for a second into my introduction. So we give online loans on our website, www.lupia.com, and so that's where you can access our services. And yeah, so I'm passionate about fintech and just creating financial products for people who are financially excluded from formal access to financing. And so we have specialized more in creating opportunities that can reinvent the wheel in terms of providing this access to these individuals. So we always tend to look at products and how we can turn them around as quickly as we can to provide an actual service to the market. And so we are very heavily targeted on women specifically, but of course we do lend to men, but specifically women because we feel that a more excluded demographic, and that's pretty much what I do at Lupia. So I'm a mother of 2 boys and been married for almost 10 years. And yeah, so I just manage the day-to-day running of Lupia.
Thank you, Evelyn. And last but not least, Rose, tell us about yourself.
It's always a very interesting question when you have to describe yourself, but the short of it, if I had to talk about who Rose is pretty much this child that refuses to grow up, a burst of energy that is layered in so many different dimensions. She understands that she's created for a purpose and she wants to be this person that leaves behind a memorable legacy. So in who I am as a person, I'm just this woman who's been trying to find herself for the longest time ever. And along this journey, I met a boy and we've spent 30 years together. We've had 4 amazing children who are the pillars through which I get inspiration from. They're my muse. I had my children very early, so I've been studying the life of young adults and teenagers, and I would say that that is the fire behind everything that I do with Style with Roses. So Rose is just this passionate, kind-hearted, energetic, means well, loyal person, and great to have as a friend, and the life of a party. That's who Rose is.
I love that. I'm so glad that we have you here as the life of the party. And I love also that hearing from 3 of you that you come from such diverse backgrounds, being women entrepreneurs and coming from the creative sectors, from multimedia, from the fintech space. So I'm glad that we have what seems to me a very wholesome conversation, that we'll be getting into quite a wholesome conversation. And for everybody that's joining us for today's Fireside Chat, some of you may already have questions. I would encourage you to put your questions down in the Q&A button. So when you look at the participants button, you will see a chat button, and right between those 2, you see a Q&A button. So in the Q&A, once you go press the Q&A button, you can put down your questions for our panelists. So you can start to do that now, but we will take a first come, first served basis when we're going into the questions. And so for today, we're going to go into the panel discussion shortly. And after we've talked and, like I said, unpacked what it means to be a female founder in the new norm, we'll then allow 20 minutes of Q&A. All right. So please put down your questions as soon as you have them. Please do not wait until the very last minute to put down your questions. And this is so that we can get to as many questions as possible in the time that we have. After we've done our Q&A, we'll then allow our speakers to give us some last remarks, some things and nuggets to think about as we leave this fireside chat. Now, I want to start the conversation that we are having today by asking all of you, so Evelyn, Rose, Sarah, to go back in your minds to March 2020, okay? So we had just realized, and I'm bringing it to the Zambian context here, we had just realized, look, COVID is here, okay? So you're running your business, you're blossoming, and you're thinking, okay, COVID is here. I want you to take us into your mind at that time. What were you thinking about? What was your headspace? And I'll start with you, Rose. What mindset were you in at the time? What headspace were you in?
Oh, that was the mindset. March 2020 felt like, you know how you are so excited and looking forward to all this display of all the sweets and a candy shop on a table, and all of those are yours for the taking, and you've chosen your favorite ones and then they get taken away. So March 2020 found me at a place where I had already planned out my year. One of the key things that you need to realize if you're an entrepreneur, you don't really have the luxury of anybody helping you in terms of what your plan is going to be. You have to think like a business. You have to act like a corporate. All the corporate entities that you see have got certain disciplines and patterns that they follow. So at the end of every year, the last quarter of the year before, you'll find that's when corporates sit and do their strategy. So I've adopted that mindset. At the end of every year, like this quarter now, I'm already thinking what's going to happen in 2021. So I'm coming into March 2020. It was now execution time. It was the time now to put all of these plans that I had ahead. And boy, it was going to be a great year. It was a year in which, my goodness, for the first time in probably 2 to 3 years, I had several signed orders. I had business ideas that I had put on the table and they'd been signed off by some partners and clients. One of the pillars of Style with Roses, the business that we run is in 3 pillars. We've got events management, we've got media as a platform in which we communicate. And most people don't know, one of the side businesses that we do is corporate communication. So I do a lot of training when it comes to customer care training, women entrepreneur training. I'm a qualified trainer. So for the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of training with one of my financial business clients, and we already had like a whole plan. We knew what we were going to do that quarter. We were going to go to all the ends of the earth. We knew exactly where we were going every quarter. We had lined up. I had 6 signed events. I was fully booked right up until July 2020. I kid you not, fully booked for events. And you know, like with these events, it's premium corporate events that I would host. I shy away from the personal. Also some personal ones that I do. So it was going to be a great year. It was a year in which I was walking in where literally I was debt free in March 2020, like for the first time ever. Like I was debt free and I've got all these orders and they were coming. So when COVID hits, then started the letters. The letters started coming in. Unfortunately, Rose, this event has been postponed. This has been canceled. This has been put on ice. So everything that we had done, because we are a service related business, had to be put on hold. And there comes now what's going to happen with the livelihood. Remember, we are a fully registered business that's fully operational. We've got offices, we've got a team that we need to take care of. So it was now going back to the drawing board. I had to now start making the Dear John calls. It's like, now I have to call my landlord at the office. Oh my God, the quarter is coming up and I don't have this money that I need to pay for 3 months rentals, which is generally what I do. Then I had to call in my team, much as they might be small, they're very impactful. I had to then tell them that we weren't going to go ahead. And in 2020 was the first time ever. Every year I have a specific goal that I do for the business. 2020 was the year of building the team. So at that time I had actually engaged 4 full-time employees that I was going to work with and that they were going to be based at the office. I set up all the office. I had a full, beautiful desk with it still gathering dust. It does get dusted time and again, but now you have to tell people that you can't, there's no point in them being in the office. They were also engaged for the purposes of the business that was coming in. So now I had to send people home. I had to now think, what is it that now we are going to do as a business? Because our business was very much dependent on service provision. It's very face-to-face. It wasn't something I could easily convert to going online, because it was always around meeting your clients in person. If you're doing training, it's in person. You have to travel to the place. If it's events, it had to be in person. So it was like really getting back to the drawing board. And for a whole probably 1 to 2 weeks, I was really watching sad movies like, Sarah Jones and all those sad movies, and just eating a lot of ice cream and figuring out why. Because it's very important for you, journey of entrepreneurship, to just stop and be still sometimes. When you get to a point where you really don't know everything and you don't have the answers, then you go back to your center and you say, be still and know. So to say, take me back to March 2020, that was the changing point of my life. And I'm sure as we speak this afternoon, we will unfold some of the stretching that happened as a result of that after I woke up 1 week later.
Thank you, Rose. I love you started with, oh my God, and just that it was a time, okay, let's reset and go back to the drawing board. And I'd like to know from you, Sarah, what was that like? What was March 2020 like for you?
Okay, so March 2020, in fact, the week that pretty much every country internationally shut down for official lockdown was, I believe, the week before or thereabouts, we were launching our e-commerce side of our business. So this is the bestofzambia.com online directory branching out into e-commerce, and literally our big announcements were that week. And you're like, okay, do we still carry on? Do we still announce in the face of a global pandemic? We were also thinking about our team, like how do we work together? We were thinking ahead about working from home, how the teams can work from home, and really concerned about how things would pan out in Zambia and other African countries. And, really just trying to think how we can work effectively in what would, turn out to be a very difficult time. Theoretically, the pandemic can be, sometimes bad things can be positive for some businesses. And theoretically, the pandemic is positive for e-commerce businesses because obviously people want to shop safer. But where we are in Zambia, e-commerce is so new that I don't think the market is not established enough, and certainly the businesses were not ready to cater to an audience who would want to shop online. And like, for example, recently we did a survey asking people why they would want to shop online. And I think it's nearly 40% of respondents said one of the main reasons they want to shop online now is because they feel it's safer. So for us, it was just, a lot of the things that Rose mentioned as well, thinking about what the potential impact is, how we're going to deal with it. And particularly it was adapting to working remotely, which is what we did very quickly after that.
Thank you, Sarah. So we have going back to the drawing board, we have adapting very quickly. I want to know for you, Evelyn, that's running a fintech, that's working in the fintech space, where were you at in March 2020?
Okay. I mean, it's a very hard time. And, we were actually in the process of raising our first investment. And so we had just been shortlisted. We had just gone through the bootcamp, and finally, we were one of the first startups that need to be out of the door to receive this investment. And we just had this one-time emergency Zoom meeting, and all our investors were available in that actual meeting. And so we knew something in that regard was coming. And they just wanted to pull the plug in terms of not understanding what COVID is and what happens next. And so we were just brutally honest in saying, look, it's a bad time to invest. We don't know what the effects of COVID are going to be going forward. And our investors were American. And so America had all these alerts going on around what's happening in the business. The markets were crashing. And so they just gave us that honest conversation on how they were going to put everything on hold until COVID happened. And so you can imagine for us is we had been selected, gone through the bootcamp, and so we wanted to impress our investors as much as we could. And so we went out to look for this market, and were able to promise this market certain deliverables, and they just put the plug and said, we're not going to do it. So my partner and I, after the meeting, we just sat down and said, we have to come up with this COVID strategy. We didn't know what it was, but a lot of it was the presentation that we did is that 40% of our loan book was collateral backed customers, and these are customers we need to physically meet, either in their premise or they have to physically come here. And so COVID meant these people wouldn't come anymore. And so we quickly had to break down in terms of what was an essential employee and what wasn't. And, you can imagine coming up with such information in a space where we didn't really have the data. There was no data to back it up who was essential at this point in time and not. And so that being the really dark time of how we're going to balance this loan book with individuals we cannot meet. So like Sarah mentioned, with the COVID brought a positive side as well. So at the time that we were then receiving this investment, we knew we wanted to fully automate our products. And so now the comeback was to convince our investors of what the plan was going to be. And we had to throw in insurance covers, convince the insurance company to actually cover us in this particular period in time as much as possible. How are we going to convert 40% customer base into believing that there's a new customer out there and tested and piloted, and just trying to convince these individuals that we were going to put out a product that was going to sell itself. And so a lot of it was just rethinking what the strategy would be. And so that was the biggest challenge of March, and just having to go through it, and then finally convincing the investors, who took a first meeting with us and finally had to take a second meeting to then convince them and say, look, this is a foolproof plan and we think we have it, and you just have to continue with this. So March was a hard one for us, but I mean, again, managed to pull through. So it's basically March for us.
Thank you for sharing that. I love what seems to be the thread from the three of you is going back to the drawing board and being responsive, adapting quickly. So you're talking about creating a COVID strategy, thinking about, okay, this is the way that we're going to go forward. How do we automate? And I'd like to know from you, as we sort of move forward, and now October 2020, when you're thinking about this year, what would you say, and sort of bringing it back to the context of the conversation, which is female founders and the new norm, what would you say is the biggest challenge that is facing female founders right now? You're talking, Evelyn, about speaking to your partner and saying, okay, look, this is what we need to do. And that shows sort of direction and so on. And what would you say are the challenges that you're facing? And I'll start with you, Evelyn, and then Sarah, and then Rose.
Okay, so I mean, they are twofold for us. And so you've got to understand that we said we're going to deliver a product, and this particular type of product in this sort of space. And so a lot of what we wanted to do was empower women. And so part of the investors we have on board is they want to see that vision implemented as well. And so what's very important for them is the impact. Now, getting into this sort of space where we have to prove that this model can actually work. We want to prove that we can impact these women. And so one of the biggest challenges that we find ourselves facing is the delivery of the product. Half of the products that we deliver is definitely addressing addressing the problem of access to cash for women. And so we found ourselves in spaces where women don't have this access, and can we then provide it for these women? Because we have a business model to prove that we can do it. And so we find ourselves facing challenges of having sole traders as one of our biggest clientele. And these are women who are having to raise their businesses, and they need revenue to boost their businesses. But at the same time, are finding themselves being the breadwinners in the family, and they have to take care of the extended families and that sort of thing. And so you find that most of the cash that we invest into these women do not end up being invested in the businesses and end up in the hands of their families and extended families, because they are the breadwinner or the supportive system of the family. And so again, it's looking back and saying, can we deliver financial literacy in these times? And so again, there's a roadblock coming in to say, you can't physically go to these institutions. There's a roadblock with the partners in terms of there's no customer interface in this regard. So what do we do going forward? And so a lot of it is just making sure that we're able to deliver a product. And so because I need to see that on a day-to-day basis. And so that's one of the big challenges that we find ourselves facing. And then as usual, the big one, as usual, will always be the balance between your work life and home life. And so a lot of it is around the cultural norms that we need to at least ensure that we subject to what we know and believe should be the norm. So it's finding that proper balance and just making sure that we can deliver a product safely into the hands of particular individuals, which we need to see justified at the end of the day, and be able to tell what the impact was in our business.
Thank you, Evelyn. And I'll come back to this, the cultural norms and so on, because I feel like that is definitely a conversation worth having. So thank you for bringing that up. Sam, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that female founders are facing right now?
I'm going to follow on from something that Evelyn said about the role of women. And I would say that one of the biggest challenges right now is juggling the demands of what society or what cultural norms are set for women. And it's very interesting for me, having lived many years in both countries. So, one of the immediate impacts for us from COVID was the literal lack, all our childcare network was pulled immediately from under our feet. So, nursery was shut. I have one son, he's 3 years old, and nursery was shut. We weren't allowed to, visit friends and family who would also help out with that. And we've got, myself and my husband, both of us working from home. My husband normally works in London, and neither of us have any flex to sort of ease on our work. And what that means is for us was literal shift work, so I was waking up early and working till 9, swap with my husband. He would do a full day's work, and then I would pick up from 5 and work until 10. That's just one of those immediate impacts. But why I'm telling you that story is that women of today, we are expected to run a business if that's what we're doing, but also we have a role to play in our home as parents, as wives. We want to look good. There's a lot of juggling to do, and we have to figure out how to balance all these things. And to be honest, I don't know whether there is a balance, but just to keep evolving and adapting to try and figure out how to fit in the business roles that we play alongside the family roles that we play and what society puts on us. I would say another big one is learning to work remotely and to build our businesses in a more automated fashion and to make them work from a distance. Even for ourselves, we're a very digital business, but we'd never prepped ourselves to work, even though we've got team members who Luke and I work from the UK and the rest of the team work from our office in Lusaka. We'd never prepped for a situation where the entire team in Lusaka, the best thing for them would be to work from home. And that means juggling internet issues, power issues, and all those kind of things. So a lot to fit in. And just generally, the theme is adapt swiftly, learn quickly, and evolve. And also, there's a way to solve everything. It just might take a little bit of figuring out.
Thanks, Sarah. I love that. Adapt swiftly and learn quickly and evolve. Thank you for sharing that. Rose, I want to know from you, what is the biggest challenge that you believe that female founders are facing at the moment, especially from your perspective?
I think it's stable finances, stability in managing your business finances, especially if you're in the services industry. And this is a topic I was speaking to even Evelyn, even as at like a day or two ago, when we're like looking at what options are there when it comes to female-led businesses. Because with female founders and businesses, there's so many factors at play. And what I like is when you listen to how each one of us has introduced ourselves, and women generally, women have got so many different facets to them. And I pick up on the example that Evelyn gave, where we're talking about many of the female founders and women that are entrepreneurs are carrying a lot of different roles. So on one side, you're trying to raise your business and you're trying to run your business like a business, that whatever comes into the business is re-injected back into the business in order for it to grow. But at the same time, because of COVID, you'll find that some of the other supporting structure that you had, perhaps if you've got partners at home who are also just in business, or they are working, but now they're having to start working from home, female founders have had to be subjected to an already stretched 6,000 roles that you played became 12,000, because now you have to become a teacher at home, then you still have to run your business, and then you have to make a call on these finances that are not coming in the home anymore. Do I borrow from that business and inject it back into the household? And then how do I draw that thin line? So often I have found in the journey when we interact with a lot of female founders, I pick finances specifically because I personally also struggle in that area where I have to find a balance. And you know, there's that heart of you that then says, for example, if a child's school fees are due and then there's no money in your personal savings at home, because obviously during COVID, most of the personal resources have been depleted. I started with that story of, oh my God, because over the months you find that your incoming revenues are frozen. Nothing's been happening on that side. It's not coming, but your life hasn't stopped. Everything else still needs to get serviced. Everything else needs to be taken care of. So you'll find that a female founder always taps into the inner woman. She goes into the heart of it. She goes into the heart and says, you know what, let me just sacrifice. Whatever it is that I have, let me put it back. So female founders end up living hand to mouth. And this is not just female founders in the sense of who we are, some of us who sit in the office. Think of the woman that's selling vegetables at the market. Think of that woman that is waking up early in the morning and carrying a bag of charcoal on her head. Think of this young entrepreneur who is a creative. She's an intern, she's left school, and she wants to really pick up in her graphic work space. In COVID, there's been a high demand for creatives. You've got your social media managers, you've got your photographers, you've got the content writers. All of those are trying to structure their business in supporting the corporate. And then you'll find that in trying to prove themselves, especially with the young ladies, I've experienced that myself. I've been forever looking for someone to help me with social media management as I got busy in the other role. And you'll find that with the young female founders, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is what I charge for social media management, but they haven't even thought out their business plan. One of the biggest challenges that we have with female founders is you don't formalize your business. You are shy of writing a business plan. You're shy of asking what you're worth. You're shy of even opening a bank account. So when I engage you and I'm like, okay, so where do I pay you for your services? Oh, just send me an e-wallet or maybe a mobile money. How are you going to track your finances? And obviously Evelyn will support me on that, because I suppose even for the financials, if you want to position yourself as a female founder and get an investment, you have to have a track record. You have to have financial records speaking for you. So I think the biggest challenge for female founders is also the glamorization of what entrepreneurship is. I bet you with everybody, every time we have all of these conversations, everybody gets excited. You see a Rose, a Sarah, and Evelyn, you think we've got it all together. We are really rolling in money. We are really rolling in our business, especially that we're clever with branding and all of that. But entrepreneurship is not just something that you show externally. Entrepreneurship is something that you have to build from the systems and procedures and going up. It's something you have to earn. You've got to get the street cred, as you call it. So often we're finding that when I say glamorization, young female founders are getting inspired through social media. Sekai is doing something that I think I can do. I think I look like Sekai. I speak better English than Sekai. I look better than Sekai. I can do this. So you haven't even researched or thought through, does it speak to your strengths? Does it speak to your abilities? Does it speak to your experience? Next thing you know, I launch a business online. I'm the CEO. I'm the founder of this. I have done this. I take a few pictures. I go out and I give out a few things in the community. Suddenly I'm a philanthropist. The female founders need to understand the importance of building a solid foundation in order for you to formally be recognized, supported, and taken forward as a serious entrepreneur. That's what I would say about female founders.
I love that you've touched on that, and all three of you have touched on this balance. And I read somewhere that it's not ultimately a half and half. It's sort of from day to day. On one day it's 60-40, on the next day it's 70-30, and you just sort of take it a day at a time. But having said that, talking about balance, talking about all of the things that you have to juggle and looking at. And on the flip side, I would add to what you're saying, Rose, about looking at a rose and thinking, I could never be the CEO at CBC and also run Style with Roses. I would like to know from you, and I'll start with you, Rose. I'd like to know from you, how did you gain the alchemy to go out and say, you know what, I'm going to move from an idea, I'm having this idea about budding and blossoming and flourishing and so on, from an idea in your mind to building something where you even have 6 signed contracts. How did you gain that? So I'll start with you, Sarah. With you, Rose, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Sekai. I would say it's a lot of time investment over time for me to sit and be able to have 6 contracts. You must remember that this has been a 7-year journey. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do 7 years, but what you do need to do is you need to be consistent. You need to make a lot of sacrifices in terms of what you really want for your life, because in taking up these responsibilities, sometimes you have to reduce on your social life. Sometimes you have to say no to certain things in your lifestyle. You have to make those adjustments. You have to continually keep learning, read a lot about the industry in which you want to be. As you rightly put it, there is an epiphany, and it's almost like a spiritual download. If you look at Style with Roses, I can tell you that is something that just became a download. What I do know is there are very few original ideas. When I came into the Style with Roses space, in the media space, it's not like it hadn't been done before. But there was a picture in my mind that picture remains very clear. And even when you look at the Bible, that's why it tells you that if you have a vision, write it down. When you write something down and you continually see it, you wake up every morning, you visualize it, and you say no to instant gratification and wait for where you've positioned what you're creating that's when you go for it. When Style with Roses, the media side of the TV talk show was being birthed, it was one of those, as I started putting the concept together, I started seeing it clearer in my head. It kept evolving. It was a question of, there were so many offers of platforms. I knew the reach I wanted an international brand. So if I want an international brand, I must be ready to invest and sacrifice into what will be an international brand. Many would look at the original concept and they'll say, why don't you just take it to X, Y, and Z? I mean, if you just take content to them, they'll take it. That wasn't my platform. You've got to decide what you are creating, what is the platform for it. It's not a cliche when people say, if your vision isn't big enough and it doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough, something like that. Then you've got to know. So for me, it was also the continuous unfolding. You will be so shocked to know, I don't know if I've ever said this on a public platform before, but after I started Style with Roses, I realized that it's actually a biblical term. It actually comes from Numbers 17:18. When Aaron's rod was thrown down and then some of it budded, blossomed, and sprouted. So you've got to have something that is within you. You breathe life into your vision. That is what's going to be your unique selling point. For example, when I've started, I even know the people that I know that I am benchmarking against are Oprah Winfrey and Mo Abudu. Now, how will I get to that place? You've got to study the person. There is a difference between copy and paste and being inspired by somebody else's journey. So what you look at is the likeness of it. If you look at Obama, he was an orator, he's a communicator, had the strength and the skill of communicating. You've got to identify what is it that you are strong in. And that strength is what you then take into your business, because that is what gives you the unique selling point. So I can be in finance business or I can be in products business, but there is something about my personality, my interrelational skills that takes me to that next level. In terms of getting the orders, the personality, the intention of, I know which clients I want to work with. I know which clients I'm targeting. I take time to read, research, understand what they're looking for, such that when I pitch, it's a bullseye. When I pitch a proposal, a concept, if you are going to be successful as an entrepreneur, and especially as female founders, you've got to take the time to read, understand, know the details, and most importantly, use your abilities, your intellectual abilities, your knowledge, your experience, your networking in order to get to the next. Your beauty, your well-spoken English or anything else, that's not even going to take you there. What's going to take you there is what value do you bring to a client? So once you understand that, and when I understood that, and constantly as I keep evolving, and this has now become a full-on business model, it was because I have an end in mind. Everything that I do, I know that I have a specific end in mind. So if tomorrow, I've told you, my biggest challenge would be the financial area. So if tomorrow now, especially COVID has come, okay, so now I've pitched my business in this market positioning place. If tomorrow comes out, things are hard, Rose, why don't you just, take a notch down? It doesn't matter. Just go and put your talk show on Facebook, or just go and no, I've already decided that is not the place for it. So you've got to be very firm and disciplined in waiting. Be patient. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's humiliating, it's judgmental, and all of those things. But you have to develop a thick skin and keep going, understanding the value of your conviction. and eventually you'll get to where you are. There are failures that always happen along the way. It's a very lonely road, the road of entrepreneurship, but with hard work, perseverance, consistency, you will get to where you're going. And Oprah is still waiting for me. I will get to her.
Thank you, Rose. I saw somebody in the chat said, this is gold. So thank you for sharing. I will come back to ask about the role of mentorship, specifically to you, as I know that's an area you're passionate about. But I want to ask, Evelyn, as we talk about fintech and we talk about building successful businesses in Zambia, I want to know from you, what are some of the potential problems? Again, thinking about the new norm, I'd like to know what are some of the potential problems that threaten the fintech space in Zambia, so it's growing, and what are some of the opportunities that you have identified?
Okay, so just so the fintech space, anything technology now is rapidly growing, and so it's coming up on the market faster than regulation can allow. So one of the biggest challenges is regulation. And just thinking back, I mean, we wanted to do an online platform and we were just going to give out microloans and reach every community in the country. But then that comes with a lot of responsibility at the same time that we didn't anticipate. So a lot of things looking around cybersecurity, looking around protecting customer data. This is everything that is very expensive to do, because I mean, the idea was always to just have a website, give out the loans, and it's as easy as that. But the truth is that there's a lot of things to rethink in order to actually deliver the product. So a lot of regulation around the fast growing industry. And so with that, we are starting to see a lot of regulation come up. And with that, it's starting to become either inclusive or it's excluding you based on what you feel you can deliver onto the market. I mean, and at the same time, what it's then starting to do is create this whole positivity in terms of reach. So for example, things like mobile money and platform payment system platforms. And so we are then finally able to reach communities that we envisioned we would see providing a service to. So, just recently we were able to, one of our biggest challenges was to try and provide facilities to individuals in border towns who can't have this access. And the biggest bottleneck was always around how do we then give the money and then collect the money at the end of the day. And so finally, with things like mobile money, new payment platforms coming on board, this just opens up so many avenues for businesses like ourselves to thrive. But again, taking it back to the negatives, there's always this concept of fraud again, which comes with a lot of identification of the information that we are receiving. Because what has happened now is that the interface with actual individuals is limited now. We do not even know 60% of our borrowers face-to-face, except for the content that they've provided for us. And so it's a lot of vetting into saying, can we verify this actual data? Can we actually pin it to the actual person and be sure that when we deliver our service, we're giving to the right actual individual? And so those are the things that we are seeing are becoming the negatives of platforms like ours. Another one I like to say is, I've just never found the right terminology, but I always like to say back in the future. And so back in the future in the sense that we've completely automated and trying to go online, but there still are going to be individuals who are going to prefer human to human interaction. And so you find that we want to deliver an actual service. There's right now, there's a COVID pandemic that we need to really be aware of. There's money knocking at your door physically that needs to come into an actual office, and we have to deliver a service. So, I mean, it's just juggling the two and seeing what works for us and what isn't. And so the fintech space is giving, the challenges you see from of what I have highlighted, but at the same time, the positives are starting to outweigh the challenges. And so we are starting to see a balance around the two things.
Thanks, Evelyn. And sort of bouncing off of what you've shared, predominantly around things like cybersecurity and tech in general, and people, you've mentioned people still wanting that human-to-human touch. And here you've built something automated end-to-end, and people are still like, I want to come to the Lupia office, I want to see your face, I want to touch a piece of paper. And that leads me to thinking about the e-commerce industry in Zambia, Sarah. And you mentioned that in March you were ready to launch an e-commerce platform. What would you say the potential of e-commerce is in Zambia, and how can individuals leverage that, especially with the current pandemic?
So I'll start by saying that the potential for e-commerce, the doors are wide open. It's such a massive opportunity for businesses and also for customers in how it can positively impact their life. I'll just rewind back to that day in March. Yes, we were about to launch the e-commerce side of our business. So, the Best of Zambia has been around for quite a while. It's been a 9-10-year journey to get to here. And we started off as a business directory, which was just built around the concept of helping our clients find more customers, helping them manage their online business, and helping them to drive sales. And then for the past 2 or 3 years, we've been really focused on how to not leave that behind, but how to add another layer of service to our business. So we are in the process of, you can go to the website shopwana.com. That will be the e-commerce side of our business. Now, we already have over 1,000 products listed on the e-commerce site on the bestofzambia.com. But over the next few weeks, they will be, that online shop will be moved to shopwana.com. And then the other thing that we're doing is introducing a free version of our online shopping side of things, a free version of our services. And why we're doing this, because we want to offer a free tool to help micro retailers. There is a vibrant group of small businesses, side hustlers who are selling, and they're selling through WhatsApp, they're selling through social media. So what we're trying to do is build a free service for them so that they can sell better right where they are. So they can sell better with WhatsApp, with social media. Now, to go back to your point about what the potential is, think about your customer base and who you can currently reach from your physical shop. The audience that you have, the potential customers that you have, think about the broader audience that you get when all of a sudden the products that you sell are online. So you're not just dependent on the people that step into your shop to sell those products to. All of a sudden, you can sell your products to people in the next city, to people in the region, and what I'm most excited about, to people internationally. For me, I just see so many beautiful products in Zambia that just fit the bill for one, the Zambian diaspora, and two, a very big audience of people who want to buy ethical products, who want to buy direct from the suppliers so that they can feel like they are supporting small businesses and the communities that they in turn support. So the biggest point for me is that if you evolve as a business into e-commerce, you expand the potential for your customer reach. And I'd also like to say, like, the cost of growing your business. It's just significantly more cost effective to grow your business online than it is to increase your physical footfall in terms of, the rents of selling in shopping malls or wherever it is. It's in my opinion, a smarter way to grow your business. Now, I'm not saying like shut down your physical shops or the way that you're already selling, because you've got to meet people where they are. And as Evelyn said, not everybody is ready to sell online. So the first step is to get e-commerce ready and to run in parallel. And there was one final part to your question, which was how do we leverage on this? So I would say businesses need to get on board. We've done the research. 98% of people that we asked, and we had over 1,000 respondents, 98% of them said they want to buy more online. But the biggest reason why they don't at the moment is that there's not enough products to choose from. So it's just a fantastic landscape to be working in. And it's very full of educating people, building trust and all those kind of things. But my call to Zambian businesses is get online and use that as an opportunity to grow your business, because it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to allow for us to go into the Q&A section. I realize that during almost all our fireside chats, webinars, and so on, there's a cry for enough time to have people ask their most fundamental questions, their burning questions for each of you. But before we go into that, I'd like to give maybe 30 seconds to each of you to just share with us over the past year, what has been your biggest lesson? So you talked about going back to the drawing board, you talked about adapting quickly, developing strategy. And then you look back on this year, what would you say has been your biggest lesson so far? Now, start with you, Rose. If you could share in 30 seconds or less, what has been the biggest lesson you've found?
Was that directed at me, Sekai?
Yes, it was, Rose.
Sorry, I lost connection for 2 seconds and I was jumping back in. I just caught the tail end of you saying in 30 seconds or less. What was the question? Sorry.
So as we go into the Q&A section to give people an opportunity to ask you their burning questions, I want to know from you in 30 seconds or less, what have been some of the biggest lessons for you in 2020? Even just one of the biggest lessons you've had when you stand in October looking back at 2020, what has been the biggest lesson for you?
The biggest lesson has been that you can always swim. You can always swim. It's sink or swim. Physically, I can't actually swim, but like 2020, I learned how to swim. And when you talk about March, what happened in March when I was like, oh my God, and I had my pity party for some time, came the biggest opportunity of my life. And one of the biggest opportunities comes with a lot of boldness, a lot of lack of fear, and a can-do attitude. So the biggest lesson that you would have if you want to persevere as a female founder, if you want to create something that is going to outlive you, be fearless, be self-confident, have some self-love, understand that nothing is certain. Your world will crumble around you in a very short space of time, which is what COVID has had. And I've always had this thing in life that what happens when a hurricane hits? You will lose everything. So don't put your belief and your strength in material things. Hold on to the things that you know are going to have a lasting impact. So everything that you're building, how is it solving a problem? How is it making somebody else's life better? And 2020 uncovered the second extension of what my assigned purpose is, and that is to grow an impact through the media platform. So even if you don't traditionally come from a space that you're assigned to, when an opportunity comes, learn as much as you can and succeed at it. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you. You dropping gems. I see people talking about this in the chat. Thank you, guys. Keep your thoughts coming. Let us know how you're feeling, and also put down your questions in the Q&A section. Sarah, what would you say has been the biggest lesson for you thinking about this new norm and living and working and building a business during COVID-19?
I would say, how much do you want it? Because it's not an easy road. There's a lot of times where I've thought to myself, you know what, I could just, go and get a job, work 9 to 5 and just live that life and things would be okay. But if you have a vision and a really big dream about what you want to do, that road, although it might look a little bit easier, it's just not going to look so attractive for you. So things are going to get really, really hard. So you've got to be very clear of how much do you want it. And I also want to just pick up with something that Rose said. She said, be fearless. And whilst that is true, I would also say, feel the fear, but do it anyway. That's like a big thing that drives me. I'm scared all the time, but you figure out a way, you learn how to be the master of that fear and to go out and do those things anyway. To feel uncomfortable is part of, like when I feel uncomfortable, I know that I'm pushing myself, and that's a good thing.
Great, thank you, Sarah. I love how you're pulling on on what's been shared by each other. I love this. I love it. Evelyn, what would you say has been the biggest lesson for you?
I mean, mine would just be to stay in the game as long as you can. As small businesses, we don't have the luxury to stay stagnant. Pivoting is immediately, it's constantly, it's every day. One thing we do every week, every Monday, is a simple concept of what's working and what isn't. There's a lot of norm, or rather talk around a pilot goes on for 3 months, goes on for 6 months and whatsoever. The truth is that for a small business, you don't even have the kind of cash to go to 3 months. You only have that 1 month, that one goal, that one opportunity. And if it's not working by Monday, you've got to pivot and just make sure you have a new strategy going in again.
I love that. Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. I hope you're ready to answer some questions now. I see that our Q&A section is on fire, so I'm going to dive into that for the time that we have left. And I want to ask that if you have a panelist-specific question, that you address it directly to them in the Q&A section. So if you have a question specifically for somebody, please make sure you put that in as you put down your questions in the Q&A section. We have a question here from Wayne who is asking, Sarah, what exactly does Best of Zambia do?
Okay, so you know that problem comes with being like on the journey and adapting as we go. In short, the bestofzambia.com started as an online business directory. So we put people's businesses online, like just, it's like a profile. It's like your website, but on a platform. So we serve businesses who either don't have a website, and so they can have a professional website on our platform. But we also have clients who have websites already, have very good brands and are well known, that still advertise on our site because they see it as a way to reach a bigger audience. But as I said earlier, our biggest focus, although we're not going to leave that behind, we're still going to run that service, but we're going to build another layer, which is to more specifically help businesses sell their products. And even businesses who are service orientated, as they evolve, adapt, and are ready to sell services online, because there is a way to sell services online, we will be ready and able to help them sell through shopwana.com. So just imagine an online platform, and it'll just be a marketplace where people can come and find products that are sold within Zambia and buy. Ultimately, at the moment, it's locally. We've built that platform specifically with localized payment integration, which is one of the biggest challenges. So there's lots of selling platforms that you can use, but at the moment, most of them, if not all of them, are not localized enough to deal with the challenges that we have in Zambia. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Sarah. Let me know in the chat section whether this answers your question. We have a question here from Annie, and her question is, I would like to know whether it's important to join one's local chamber of commerce, and if so, how can one inject entrepreneurial fire in it, especially with the COVID around, when everything seems to have been buried. I am relocating to Luapula province and thinking of joining. And I think I'll ask this question to Evelyn. Would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, is it Annie, the name?
Annie, yes.
Go for it and say, part of 50% of what you do as a business is to engage in as many networks as possible, because that's where you're going to find the most of your customers. And so whatever opportunity is available in Luapula, and if it's the Chamber of Commerce, that's where you need to be. And from such platforms, you learn simple concepts. I remember starting my business. I went to an all-women platform called the We Create, and it's simple concepts like bootstrapping into your business, simple concepts like building a business model that generates as much revenue as you can, justifying your business. It's the simple nuggets that you get with starting with as little as you can. So I'd as much as possible encourage you, because you just never know where your next opportunity comes from. what you're able to leverage from that. And so if you can join as much as, engage as much as possible, and just enjoy the experience and see what comes out of it.
Thank you, Evelyn. Annie is actually one of the winners that came out of the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs with WEAC that was implemented by We Create and Bongo Hive. So it's good to have you here, Annie, and to know that you're moving to Luapula to make the project work. We have a question for you here, Rose, and it has to do with mentorship. And remember, I promised we would come back to the conversation on mentorship. And we have somebody here that's asking, and they're anonymous, but they're asking, do you offer mentorship classes, and how do we get in touch with you?
I do. I just need to wait for the COVID to lift. Because amongst my 99 jobs, I've got to find time for that. I do offer mentorship sessions. They haven't been formalized yet. And for the simple reason that mentorship is something that is a relationship and a contract that needs to be agreed. There's a lot of details that go around mentorship, which are milestones that need to be set between us. What is it that you're looking for? What are the objectives? What area of support are you looking for? So for the time being, I generally tend to give advice in open and general platforms like this, but I'm more than happy to customize mentorship sessions. I usually also do this through the TV talk show, which I am so proud and excited to share that I will be going into production for the 3rd season, yes. So that was created pretty much for that. The Style with Roses TV talk show is predominantly a platform that matches experienced and inspirational, knowledgeable flourished roses, as I call them, like your Sarahs and your Evelyns, who would then come and share nuggets of wisdom and knowledge and share their experience to call you to action as an entrepreneur. But I'm more than happy to do that. And this is something that George and I have been talking about at Bongo Hive. So as soon as we put something formal together, I'm more than happy to spend some time with you and take you through the mentorship experience.
Fantastic. Thank you. Whoever asked that question, I hope that answers your question. We have a question here for Sarah. And the question is, and this is coming from Kavanga, and Kavanga would like to know, my question is, how do we handle, Sarah, yes, Sarah, I love your vision. Literally had a conversation with my friend Vincent about the possibility for a market for authentic Zambian products in foreign markets. My question is, how do we handle the logistics of shipping out, for example, a Tonga basket from Monze to a wanting buyer in Kigali or Cape Town or London? Is the bestofzambia.com looking to fulfill such a need?
Okay, it kind of follows that if we want to grow the e-commerce side of things in Zambia, then we need to resolve the logistics challenges. And in all honesty, I'll tell you that we haven't solved that, where you're getting a product from somewhere, far out in Zambia, needing it to then come to the capital city and then from there go out. This is something that I have literally just started researching, because I can see that that's going to be, because to be able to process international payments on our platform, it's not far off. It's something that we can be launching. I haven't got an official date yet, so please don't hold it to me. But it's something that we can have in a matter of months. We're not talking longer than that. So if we can process international payments, then we have to figure out about the transport of goods. But we won't be solving that problem ourselves. We will be looking to partner with local providers. What I do know is that products, they go to and from Zambia. I know a lot of people buy products from UK and they're sort of shipped into Zambia. And I know that we just have to find that solution. One of the things that's working really well, which many of you will know, is the transport of products on the buses. If that can be formalized or done in a more efficient way, then that's an option. And at the same time, we are speaking to local logistics companies who are delivering on paper. They promise to deliver anywhere in Zambia, but I also know that can be quite tricky. So I'm a little bit too early on in the journey to answer that question specifically. But as we've said again and again in this conversation, everything is solvable. And I believe that we will solve it, and that the prices associated with it will come down as the industry develops, as the competition expands, because competition brings better service and reduces prices.
Thank you, Sarah. I see here Nakamui Manze is advertising and saying NAC 2000 can do it.
There you go. NAC 2000 are a client of ours, and they can be they are the type of company that we would be working with. I mean, big companies export all the time. So for us now, it's about scaling that down and going, okay, big companies can do it. Now let's find a way to systemize it and set up the processes to enable more medium, smaller, micro businesses to do that as well. It can be done.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a question here from Masilokwa, and it's specifically for Evelyn, and it's within Lupia, do you use machine learning or neural networks to calculate credit scores and credit risk when giving out loans to customers, as well as what other areas are you applying these technologies? Evelyn? Your mic is still on mute, Evelyn.
Sorry about that. There's a bit of noise in the background now. Yes. To answer your question, we do use AI and machine learning to do our credit scoring in the business. A lot of the vetting process is done with AI, just because we fully want to automate and have very little human interaction in that process. And to answer your question again about future technology? We do want to launch a lending app within the next 5 months. So that's something that's going to come up. But I think a lot of our focus now is to just engage in as many partnerships as we can before we can even fully go into a lot of technology building.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn. For you, Rose, I have a question here from Nathan. And we talked during the conversation about balance, and all three of you touched on this. And Rose, if you could speak to this question from Nathan, that is, how have you set boundaries and expectations with your family when you're working at home to ensure you're productive and not distracted? Rose?
Thank you, Nathan. Luckily for me, I had my kids early, so they're not such kids anymore. So they're young adults and everybody tends to have their own space. I've kind of done life the reverse way. But you're absolutely right. I think boundaries are very important, and you've got to set yourself a space in your home that is like a no-go area. And this is like your little office, your little corner. You even have timeouts. Like, you know, when mom is sitting in that corner, everybody even knows she's either on her Zoom or she's on her laptop and she's doing her thing. So don't go there. It's a no-go zone. I even have a do not disturb sign. I told you I'm an animated. I'm very like, you know, very visual. So I've got a do not disturb sign in front of my table in my little corner. But what's important also in setting boundaries, and you've done well to ask this question, and especially for young female founders, the world is rapidly changing. And there's a lot of a shift in terms of what expectations a woman's role is in the house, and how when you are in a space where you're probably the predominant income earner in the house, how do you balance yourself in terms of a young wife? You want to pursue your career, you want to pursue your business, but at the same time, your children and your husband also need your attention. This then comes back to your personal organization skills. So you've got to put some boundaries in terms of time out. Most likely you have to adjust your timing yourself. For example, I sleep very late because I function better at night. So now I know that there is a time out when I get home. If I'm not at work or I've got a commitment between 18 and 20, I block off 18 hours to about 20, 30 to 22. That's my family time. Either I'm cooking a meal or having conversation with the children. And then I'm forcing my husband to watch the soap that I like. But that's the time that we spend together, kind of thing. So there's times that you even know, switch off your phone, put away your laptop, but just focus on that family time. And also, especially over the weekends, I don't tend to go out quite a lot and socially, but you've got to have that personal balance where you always have to have 2 hours a day at least set aside for your family. And it doesn't have to be continuous. It could be half an hour in the morning. It could be an hour lunchtime. I'm old school. Go back to old school methods of let's sit together at a dining table and eat. If we're not at the table, we're all tired. Let's have our meals in front of the TV and veg out like that. Let's watch Idols together on a Sunday. So you spread out like that, because it's actually very good for your good heart to stay like that. If you're a creative, a business person, you need that sanity and that peace that comes with finding time and a balance for the people that are close to you in your life.
Thank you, Rose. So for the sake of time, I'm only going to do another round, just one last round of questions. And I ask panelists that we try and be as succinct as possible in answering this last round of questions, at which point I'm going to then throw it back to you to give us some last words to leave this fireside chat with. And so my question is for Evelyn, and this one comes from Nakamwi. Nakamwi wants to know, what's the criteria for one to qualify for a loan? And with the harsh economic environment, what mindset should one have to make it or break even? There's quite a number of questions here, so I'm just going to stop at that one, which is, what's the criteria for one to qualify for a loan? And with the harsh economic environment, what mindset should one have to make it or break even? And that's for you.
Okay. So I mean, in terms of criterion, we have different loan types in which we classify individuals. And so we are heavily on the employer access, but we also have business loans, and these are for individuals who we can finance orders, so that's order financing. And so in that space, we'll be looking at individuals who have an order to supply something to an actual company. So we'll be looking for your identity documentation, so that's personally and for your business. We don't tend to look at bank statements in that regard, but if there is a bank statements, that's well and good for us, because then we start to build a customer profile around you and see if we can give you extended financing services. And then lastly, we'll just look into if you do have financials. If they're not there, we have a pre-populated document that we ask you to just fill in the actual information and can populate a simple financial model for you. In regards to the question of breaking even, I mean, a lot of what we do is because we offer a couple of array of loans. And so what we've just done is segment them into the loan types, and each loan type is able to give us a certain amount of revenue. And so a lot of it is around just realistically modeling how you can gauge this revenue and be as specific as possible to who you're going to get this revenue from. And so I'll just give a simple example would be, for example, we would know that Coca-Cola has 300 customers, and these are people who would be looking for salary advances. So maybe we can give the salary advances to 20% of these individuals. So it's very specific who we are trying to target. And then we go, how can we get to this space, deliver our product? Can we get the 20% to actually be onboarded and then provide this service and generate the revenue? So it's pretty much just being as succinct as possible into defining where the revenue is going to come from, as opposed to shooting in the sky and saying there's 10,000 salary employees and we can give them loans. I think it's a bit overboard that way.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you. And now we have a question from, another question from Masiloko, and this is for Sarah. And with regards, so Sarah, with regards to your e-commerce platform, what is your strategy with regards to product fulfillment? For current delivery costs within places like Lusaka are quite high, especially within the current economic status. So what is your strategy with regards to product fulfillment? So again, if you could be as concise as possible for the time that we have left.
So we have a number of models. So for those people that don't want to pay for delivery, we have a pickup in store option. So you can buy online and then go to the store to pick up your items. But you know, that's much more efficient. You're going You don't have to go and pick up your products and put them in your basket, etc., etc. You're literally you've bought them online, you have your order, you go to a designated place in store and you can pick up your products. That's free. So regarding costs, that's one way that you can do it. And then with regard to other ways of getting products like within Lusaka, we are, at the moment, we are working with a number of different logistics companies. One of them is on bikes, delivering products on bikes. Some of them are more established logistics companies. And just working out, what we're trying to do is automate it. So looking at the distance for delivery, so that when you're online, you've put your items in your basket and you'll say where your location is, and it will just automatically calculate the price based on what we've fed into the system. Getting products from where you want them to where you need them to be, there is going to be a cost, but we are doing our best to manage that.
Thank you, Farah. And we have a question here finally for you, Rose. And this is from Marifa Mabulanga. And the question is, we talked about feel the fear, do it anyway, be fearless. And Marifa is asking, how did you conquer your fears to start your businesses? You're talking about the spiritual download, talking about breathing life into your vision. How do you conquer those fears? How do you feel the fear and do it anyway, and then overcome it? So if you could share, Rose, on that. How did you do that?
Thank you, Aretha. I still haven't done it. I still get scared every day. I still have fears every day. I still have doubts. I still have that, oh my God, feeling like, can I really do this? Am I going to do it? But I also understand that if I don't try, how will I ever know if I can conquer it or not? So it's just constantly stepping out and trying it. Even when you have that niggly feeling, it's like at the beginning of a race, when you're about to go into a race, you've already been tried and tested as a 100-meter sprinter. That's why you are on that line in the first place. So what's the point of going all the way there, and then when the whistle blows and then you freeze? You might as well go for it, right? So that's just it. You've got to keep believing in yourself and understanding that, look, what's the worst that can happen? You will try it, you might fail, but you get up tomorrow and try again. You will learn, okay, why did I fall? You always keep reviewing. When the only way you can conquer your fear is you try 3 steps. Out of those 3 steps, you couldn't get off the ground. I wanted to walk out of the house. I stood by the doorway. I fell when I got to the doorway. Why did I fall? Oh, maybe I didn't notice that there was a stumbling block in front of me. You've got to identify what that stumbling block is. So once you define what it is, then you can easily overcome it. One thing that I feel like drawing from God or a higher power or whatever it is that gives you your mojo is understanding that as a human being, you were created to dominate anything. Anything that doesn't speak cannot defeat you. So you've got to find that inner strength that allows you to overcome. And you should also be able to identify 1 or 2 very trusted people that you can bounce ideas off. You always ask, if you feel like, if I have a problem here, say, Kai, this is what I tried to do and I couldn't get it. You have to have some voices of reason that are speaking in your life. Like we said earlier, and Sarah put it beautifully, being scared doesn't stop. And every time life throws you a curveball, every time you wake up in the morning, there will be something that you will not be able to do. But guess what? There is a solution to everything. That's a given. It's just how you choose to go about overcoming the obstacle that's in front of you.
Thank you, Rose. You see why people are asking about mentorship classes. Things like but that's all the time we had for the Q&A section, and there's never enough time for Q&A, never ever. But I'd like to thank everybody for putting down your questions, and I hope that you've taken away something from today's fireside chat. And I just want to ask each of you, each of our panelists here today, as we've been talking about female founders in the new norm. In 30 seconds or less, could you share with us one last thought? If you could leave us with just one thought as we exit this fireside chat, what would that be? And I'll start with you, Rose, and then we'll hear from you, Evelyn, and then Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Sakai. Why do I always get to go first? Like at school, I always had to line up first, and you keep asking me first. I'm teasing. Okay, on a serious note, go digital. Do not be afraid of technology. Embrace the change that has come with technology. Learn how to use technology for any type of business that you go into, because every business has got an angle that requires you to be on the digital space. Whether you're dealing with products and services, you can sell online, you can communicate online, the borders are open. Now you can actually escalate your business and grow your business very quickly because of technology. So embrace technology. Female founders, ladies, do not be afraid of pressing the mute and unmute button on Zoom. Learn how to use Zoom.
Thank you, Rose. Evelyn?
I mean, mine would just be for every entrepreneur out there to just, as much as possible, keep testing your business model. The more revenue you can generate, the better the advantage for you in any single path. In every avenue, you're looking to raise financing. The biggest thing that individuals are going to look at is the commerciality of your product. So just a simple advice. You have 1,000 kwacha, you're in the lending space. It's more practical to lend to 100 customers, which should be a group of marketeers. You boost your customer data as fast as you can, as opposed to lending it to 4 or 5 people. The goal there anyway is just to prove that you have a viable product. And as much as possible, just keep testing the market, seeing if it's viable, pivot as quickly as possible, and just keep trying your best.
Thank you, Evelyn. Sarah?
I would say just start, even before things are perfect, even before you have all the answers. Yes, you need the plan, you need to take the time to plan, strategize, and all those things. You need to do that. But don't be like a rabbit in headlights where you're like coming up with excuses of all the reasons why you can't start. Because there's always going to be 1,000,001 reasons why not to start. There's always going to be questions you don't have the answers to. There have been questions that have been asked of me today where I'm like, you know what, to be honest, we're still researching and resolving these questions, but the answers are there, the answers are out there. It's just a question of how. So test, evolve, move with your market, and just don't be thinking that things are going to be perfect, that you'll be running your business knowing all the weaknesses, all the things that you would wish you could change if you had all the resources. But do it anyway and know that it's just a journey, it's a path, and it's about figuring it out as you go along.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for those gems. I was thinking to myself, I feel very personally attacked, but thank you so much for sharing all of those with us. We had some great questions today, and I'm just going to shout out the Bongo Hive team and ask that we figure out a way to make sure that all of the questions that were asked today are answered. So Rhoda and George, if you could please just take note of these questions so that we can assure that they are answered, whether in a tweet or in an email blast. We just have to make sure that they are responded to. And we've had quite a few questions and inquiries about, can people reach you? Are they allowed to reach out to you? They are. Yeah. I'm going to take the liberty of saying that they are.
Yeah,
they are.
Fantastic. So if you have a question today, you have a question for Evelyn, for Rose, and for Sarah, please slide into their DMs. Don't be afraid to do it. Yeah. And just reach out to them and say, look, I was a part of this fireside chat. You said this, and I have a question about it. And they'll be sure to respond. But thank you so much for being here today. Evelyn, Rose, Sarah, thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. And thank you to everybody that's joined the conversation, that you've been present. The chat section, the Q&A section has been on fire throughout this fireside chat. So thank you for being engaged. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.